Hello and welcome to English 1302. This is for the spring semester of 2024. I'm your professor, Dr. Eric Luttrell. If you are in this class, presumably you have already taken English 1301 or some equivalent composition, rhetoric, or writing class. Now, you may wonder why all the different names. Is it composition? Is it writing? And that is a question we're going to be going through as a department, as a discipline. That is teachers across the country. What is our goal here? Is it just writing, or is it composing something? And if we're composing, then what is that? I only bring this up because of the obvious changes in our society that have begun with the release of ChatGPT and are about to escalate as our economy and media consumption become increasingly automated. When it comes to classes like this one, people tend to focus on the fact that it's now easy to cheat by using ChatGPT to write an essay. Well, that's possible, but it's comparable to using a calculator in a math class. You can use a calculator in some math classes, but only after you understand the fundamental rules that they follow. That is, you need to know the fundamental rules of mathematics before you will be allowed to use the calculator. But once you do, as you progress, you can use the calculator to speed up basic calculations so that you can apply those outputs to more complicated problems, such as physics or engineering. And it's the same basic principle with composition classes. You are learning to compose a thought in language at the sentence level and then progressively at more complicated levels. So once you learn the fundamentals of sentence composition, you can move up to the composition of things like expository writing or argument or narrative. If you're enrolled in a college composition class, you should already know the fundamentals of sentence structure. If you're still vague on like when to use commas or whether to start a sentence with a conjunction, I would encourage you, it's better to get it wrong than to use an outsource like ChatGPT or any other AI. That is because we expect you to know these things by now, by the time you finish high school. But if you don't, you're not going to learn it if you're not actually being corrected. If you're using a habit that is not accurate, then when you are without that, external source like a GPT, just like when you're without a calculator trying to do math in your head, you're going to find then that it's too late for you to learn the thing. You're going to be learning on the fly. So the important thing is that you know why the rules of grammar, why the rules of how to begin and end an essay, things like that, why they are the way they are. Because the rules of grammar will shape the meaning of a sentence. And if you're communicating something that the idea in your head is one thing, but because of the grammatical choices you make, you may have communicated something completely different to another person. But the focus of this class is more advanced than sentence structure. We're moving beyond the type of expository writing that you probably learned in English 1302. We're going to delve into the structure of an argument. That is the reasoning, both the explicit reasoning and the implicit necessary reasoning that has to happen for someone to look at facts and make inferences that lead to a particular conclusion. This is the part that we tend to think we can do already. If you think English class is just there to help you put some polish on your great idea, to get those ideas out of your head and communicate them as they are to other people so that those other people will see them and agree with them, then I've got some bad news for you. Most of these great ideas are not great ideas. They're not new, they're not original, and most importantly, they didn't come directly from the facts. They came from other people. They came from family, friends, movies, music, social media influencers, and now increasingly the artificial intelligences that mimic those people. We're going to have to completely retro-engineer the process of forming conclusions from facts before we will be ready to compose an argument that will actually change someone else's mind. And we will do that retro-engineering through writing. That's not a new concept. That's not a new practice. That is actually the origin of the word essay. The word essay actually comes to us through the French, thanks to the author Michel de Montaigne, who is best known for his writing, which is just referred to as the essays. If you look it up in a dictionary, and I recommend you use the Oxford English Dictionary, which is paywalled for most people, but we have access to it through the university library. But it's a great resource. But if you look up the word essay in the OED, you'll see that the very first definition that they list is the action or process of trying or testing. Now, that might not seem like what you're used to thinking of as an essay. What you're used to thinking of probably is listing number 8 here. That is a composition of moderate length on any particular subject or branch of a subject, composition in writing. And it is, an accurate definition, but notice how low in the list it is. Well, that is because Montaigne wasn't trying to write a formal proof of a conclusion. He was dealing with people who were very certain about their beliefs. He was writing at a time in France when Catholics and Protestants were going to war with each other because each was absolutely certain they knew the absolute truth, and they weren't willing to listen to the other. In fact, they were willing to go so far as to call the others heretics that need to be purged. And Montaigne was not that certain about anything. He wanted to understand why certain conclusions were supposedly better than others. So he wanted to look at the evidence behind them, but importantly also alternative explanations of that evidence. He's sort of, he chooses this word, essay, because of its origin. Its origin originally, the reason it originally meant something like a test or a trial of metals, that kind of thing, is because it comes from the Latin word exagere, this testing of metal to see if you've got something like pure gold, which at that time they couldn't tell except if they weighed it against something that they knew was gold. If someone presented you with, some shiny metal, it might actually be mixed with nickel and copper and some other elements that were not as valuable. So the only way you know is if it's as heavy, if the same size coin or whatever is just as heavy as something that you already know, you have something to compare it to. So if it's not made of gold, it will be lighter. So you would put it on the scale next to something you knew was gold to see if it held up. Well, this testing process requires some investigation. It's not something we simply accept. If someone tells us this thing is gold or this belief is certain, we have the choice to just accept that or to put it on the scale, to test it, to see, are there alternatives? Is there something we should be skeptical about? And Michel de Fontaine was very skeptical, even of himself. So he wanted to think through the justifications for a conclusion, but also alternatives, add qualifications to it. He's rather famous for sort of going off topic, or at least what seems off topic. But he's really just sort of trying to say, well, I think this is the most likely interpretation, but here is a possibility that would lead me elsewhere. Here is a qualification for this conclusion. That means, like, under certain conditions, I will change my mind, but I don't know if those conditions have been met yet. These are the kinds of things that make an essay what it is, even though it's in writing. You can think of the essay as sort of showing your work the way you would do in math. If you, come to an answer, you might be wrong, but a lot of times a math teacher will say, show your work, and then you might get partial credit because they want to see that your thinking was accurate up to a particular point. But also it helps us understand the parts of thinking that we have to go through, the usually unstated reasoning that we need to get from one understanding to another understanding. And that is why Montaigne's writing usually looks like this. This is a manuscript that had already been printed with a printing press, which is a big deal at the time, and very expensive, but yet he still goes over it and wants to change things, change words, but also change entire ideas, because he's never quite satisfied with what he has. So if you have a certain fear of writing an essay or writing anything else because you feel like it's not perfect yet, that's good. That means you're on the right track. That is the situation we're in. Because an essay, even though it seems like in written form, like it's some sort of finished product, it's only just an addition to a conversation. It's only just sort of showing your work when it comes to thinking either in order to communicate or just to understand something yourself. To take something that you have some ideas about, but you still don't have a good feeling of certainty, or better yet, something that's very important even when you do feel a certain feeling of certainty. We're going to look and see throughout the rest of the semester that certainty is not our friend. Certainty can cause us to not look for the truth because we think we already have it. So Montaigne chose the word because he wanted to remind himself and anyone who happened to read these essays that these are not absolute finished products of thinking. The essay is a way to look into the complexity of the thinking process, especially relevant in a time of uncertainty. And this is what it is for us as well. An essay is not a report. It's not just sort of delivering information. It is looking at the reasoning process, maybe for the purposes of persuading somebody, but as we'll see, sometimes persuasion is maybe not the best goal, at least not the best goal to start with. We can use the essay to better understand our own position on something, especially something complicated. And as I mentioned, with the sort of rise of artificial intelligence, things in our society are about to get very complicated. That is not a reason not to learn to write an essay. It is actually even more of a reason to learn to write an essay. So with that in mind, in this class, this semester, we are going to be dealing with an example, a case study that is not a very clear, cut and dry, compact, concise list of information. We are going to be focusing our discussions and our writing, which are one and the same thing, parts of the same process. We're going to be focusing on the discussions currently, I'm sure that are very interesting to you as well as your parents. That is issues about a college education, the state of the university now, what its purposes are, issues about free speech, issues about what you want to get out of the university, and the careers that you can expect to be waiting for you after your education, many of which will not be a year or 5 years from now what they are now. An economy is going to look very different. The job market is going to look very different. The required expertise for any particular job is going to be very different. So all of these are going to be relevant to our discussion, but you're going to sort of think about why you're in college to start with, what you want out of your university education, what sorts of things you want your university to resemble. Things like, what can I say? What do I want to listen to? What do I not want to listen to? What sorts of rules can I put on things like speech and action? What is disruptive to the educational process, and what sorts of ambiguities and disagreements are actually necessary to the educational process? There are several different issues within this sort of larger umbrella, but this is what we're going to be focusing on. The first thing that you're going to see that we'll deal with, your first readings, are actually going to be two essays, essentially, about the role of college, both at the sort of administrative level and at the individual level. But before we get into that, let me go over how the class is going to work. When you log into Blackboard and go to the class's Blackboard module for 1302, the first thing you're going to see is the announcements page. Now, you should have already gotten an announcement in your email, and you'll get one of these at least once a week. And you'll see the same thing here down below the word announcements. And this will tell you what's coming up for the week, what you need to read, what you need to do, what due dates are quickly approaching. When I introduce the major assignments, you'll see all of that in both the email announcement and verbatim announcement right here. Now, the first thing you want to do after checking the announcements is go to the schedule of readings and assignments. I'm going to look at that real quick, but we'll get to the syllabus in just a second. This is the schedule where you will see the things you're supposed to watch, like this introductory video, which I will normally have a link for, but obviously I'm recording the video right now, so I can't give you a link to it. But these videos will be on YouTube, so it should make it easier to access than if they were embedded in Blackboard. But you'll watch the video, and then do the readings. So the readings here are in PDF form. If you see that red book icon there, that means it's a PDF. Just click here and that should open for you. You'll see sometimes there will be a newspaper icon here, and that will take you to a website. Those websites should not be paywalled. Sometimes I will assign something from a major publication like the New York Times or Washington Post. And when you click on it, it might tell you that you have a limited number of free articles you can read. And if you have gone past that number, it's going to ask you to subscribe. I will never ask you to subscribe for anything. So there will usually be a PDF attached in addition if it's a paywalled site. And if for some reason you can't get access to an article, definitely email me to let me know, and I will see what to do about that. Now, these are the readings. You will also see the videos, and you will see down at the bottom there are a quiz and a discussion forum, all due by Friday. I will probably make an exception for this Friday due date this week because it's our first week and it's a shortened week due to the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, and the campus closures due to cold weather have sort of slowed things down, not to mention the fact that I'm just now probably Tuesday night or Wednesday morning getting this video uploaded. But that quiz will be on the material from the reading and from whatever video, lecture, or anything else that's listed above that. I will have expected you to be familiar with all of that material by the time you take the quiz. The discussion forum is also due then, but you'll want to work on that probably first as you're doing the readings. Look and see what the discussion questions are and write a response to that. I'll talk more about the requirements for those in a second. I just wanted to show you what the schedule looks like. Whenever you're in doubt as to what is coming up, check the schedule. As I say, it will be updated. It is a work in progress. I will have to, unfortunately, add things during the week in which I want you to read them or watch them, primarily videos, because I'm teaching this class alongside two face-to-face in the classroom classes of the same material. I'm going to record lectures, at least, if not discussions, in those face-to-face classes, then upload that to Blackboard so that you can then watch that lecture, get the same description of the concepts and things like that, so that you're ready. These will be things that are usually introduced in the reading that's assigned, so you'll get it twice. Every now and then there will be new terms in the lecture that you'll want to have in your notes. But anyway, you'll get that. But I will have to actually, record the video in the classroom, then upload it. So it might be as late as Wednesday afternoon sometimes that I post a video lecture. The next most important thing is the syllabus. So if you go to course information here, you will see my information, but I've blacked it out because this is going to be on YouTube. But when you look at it, you should see, the email that you can use to contact me, where my office is, what the number for that office is. And obviously I'm only going to be answering the phone when I'm in the office, and I'm only going to be in the office during the office hours. I might be in other times, but it's not guaranteed. And if you need to meet with me, I highly encourage you to do that either through Zoom, and there's the link there, or come to the office yourself. But to do that, to make things easier on both of us, just to make sure I'm going to be in the office and I'm prepared for you and that we don't have a lot of people showing up at the same time, use bookings by clicking the link that says to schedule office visit, use bookings. I've also got a link to the playlist that's going to have a lot of the videos for this class in it. They're not in a great order, and I won't be assigning all of them, so it's not going to do you a lot of good to go through all of them. You're going to get a lot more material than you actually need. But this is, when in doubt, this is where to find videos that are going to be relevant to what we're talking about. Obviously, this is an online class. It's asynchronous. There's not going to be like one particular live stream class that you need to attend. But we are going to have that Friday deadline. I don't foresee, except maybe the very last week, having any deadline that's not Friday, because in week 15, I think we've only got 1 or 2 days. I think reading day is actually Tuesday. So that Monday, we're supposed to have something to do. So that there actually probably will be a due date or something like that for that week. But all weeks 1 through 14, I'm going to try to make sure the deadlines are always on Friday. Another possible exception might be the peer review assignments that we'll be doing later in the semester, just because these have to be in 2 stages. There has to be a stage where you submit something and then a stage where you do the review of somebody else's. We might have to divide the week up, but I will let you know more about that as the time comes. There will always be a notification whenever there's anything out of the ordinary. I'm going to address that in the announcements. So if you scroll down, you'll see where your grades come from. That is 20% of your grade is going to come from quizzes. These are going to be, as you can read more about down here, these are going to be usually multiple choice questions that there will be 10 of them. You will have 10 minutes to answer all 10 of them. You can start at any time during the week they're assigned. Usually they'll be posted at least by Wednesday, and they'll be due on Friday. But once you start it, you've got 10 minutes to complete it. And if you lose your connection, if you close the browser, that clock is still ticking. It's not going to pause the test for you. So you want to have a time when you won't be disturbed, you won't be interrupted, and you want to have a reliable internet connection before you start your quiz. And after the due date is when the answers will become available. So even if you take your quiz on Wednesday, you won't be able to see the accurate answers until Saturday. That is because we don't want people, looking at the answers for others. Even though these will frequently be randomly generated from a larger, more than 10 questions, we'll select 10 questions out of that. Still, to reduce cheating and that kind of thing, I need to reserve the showing of the answers until after the quiz has been. After the due date has passed. But for that reason, once the due date is passed, I can't accept any further quiz submissions. Another 20% of your grade is going to be discussion posts and peer review assignments. Now let me discuss those very quickly. The discussion forum is going to get to that, or I should mention, to take your quiz up here, you'll see the icon, the stopwatch icon and the word quiz. Click on that. There's nothing right now, but once the first quiz is posted, you'll see it there. That's where you go to start your quiz. To do your discussion forum, click on discussion forum up here on the left, and it will take you to a page that will show you the current. I will try to keep them so that the current discussion forum is the one at the top, and then as you look down, you'll see ones from the past. It might not work that way. There is actually two ways into the discussion forum. The other one is down here with collaboration tools, and I might need to keep them in the same order just to avoid confusion. So, but either way, I will put like which week, which date that particular discussion forum is for. But when you get there, I'll give you a list of questions or things to discuss. That I want to get you to give your own input, but usually I want you to read the assigned text or watch the videos or listen to the podcast first and then respond to the question. But as long as you do the sort of basic requirements, which is, about 150 words response to one of the questions, to one of the prompts, or to something someone else said. As long as you do about 150 words, it's on topic, it shows some thought, you'll get 100% credit. I'm not going to be looking at grammar. I'm not going to be looking at, how refined your argument is and all of that in the discussion forum. This is just sort of getting your ideas out there and, thinking, starting the essay process through conversation. Sort of showing your own thinking as it's developing, but also your thinking in interaction with other people. So you can either click on create thread to answer the question that you chose, starting with your own answer, or you can read someone else's response to that prompt and then respond to what they say by clicking reply. Either way, as long as you have that 150 words on topic, showing some clear thought, then you will get full credit for that. Now, peer review assignments are part of the same percentage, that is that 20% of your grade, but they function differently. The peer review assignments are set up so that there are two phases. One where, again, you will answer a prompt about your own research or your own issue that you've chosen to write about. And you will answer those questions, and then at the end of that submission phase, there will be an absolute deadline. There's no way once that first phase deadline passes, there's no way I can add in any late peer review assignments. So please don't ask, because there's just no way I can do that, because there has to be one point in time where the application takes all the submissions, and then everyone who submitted something, it will exchange what basically what you wrote will be shown to two other people, and then what two other people wrote will be shown to you. And you will give comments to each other and a numeric score. But the numeric score is just It's important for the sake of, taking the grade. But the most important thing is the comments, the feedback you give to people. And I do the peer review in addition to the discussion forum because some people might get more feedback than others in the discussion forum, but the peer review allows everybody to get at least 2 peers responding to what they've written. And so there will be the review phase where you'll read what someone else has written and you'll write responses to sort of help them figure out something they may be missing, or, give them advice for editing and that kind of thing. And we will have more discussion forums in the beginning of the semester and more peer review assignments later in the semester, just because of, how they function and how your responses feed into your writing. Now, your writing is here in the section called essays. That is divided up into 10% of your grade, of your final grade, will come from your annotated bibliography. That is where you start looking for sources that will help you at least begin to understand the issue you've chosen. It'll be something about the college experience or free speech on campus or college education in the age of AI or something like that. You'll look for sources. You'll list those sources out in APA format, 5 of them. Then you'll annotate them, and that's the important part. You're going to say not only what does this source talk about, what sort of insights does it deliver, but how is it going to feed into your thinking? How is it relevant specifically to your project? In addition, to describing some context for it. 10% will be a rhetorical analysis. This is where you're going to look at what other people have said, and you're going to identify the types of issues they focus on. We're going to talk about the different points of stasis. That is, what facts do they show? Where do they get those facts? What sorts of terms and assumptions are they making? These are questions of definition. What do they imply about cause and effect? Are they taking correlated data and confusing that with a causal relationship? As well as what values do they seem to presume? What do they take for granted? What values might not they share with other members of this discussion? And then questions of policy. Do they say we should do this thing? Or, and if so, have they really thought through the feasibility of a particular action? Anyway, you're going to be just analyzing another argument, not your own. This isn't making your own argument yet in the rhetorical analysis. That will be due right before spring break. Then essay 1 and 2 will both come after spring break. We will build up to those through things like discussion forums and peer review assignments. But the first essay takes the form of a Toolman argument. This is an argument where you don't just give the data and your conclusion. You also identify the reasoning that connects that data to the conclusion. And you will add certain qualifications to it. Say, under certain circumstances in an ambiguous situation, I would make this claim, but as information is still incoming and the situation is still changing, there might be conditions in which another conclusion is justified. This is the kind of thing Montaigne was talking about when he sometimes couldn't come to a decision or would contradict himself. That is because reality is complicated. If we describe it in really simplistic terms, we're not actually helping things. We're actually just no longer dealing with reality. So qualifications can be very important. That's part of a Toolman argument. Then you're going to revise that essay in the second essay, which is the Rogerian argument. This is going to be an argument that is made specifically addressing someone who does not share your position on this issue. Someone who, we might have a polarized argument if we just sort of attack someone. If we say I'm right, you're wrong, and let me tell you why you're wrong. Those sorts of arguments don't tend to work. They just tend to cause people to become more and more antagonistic, but also they increase their resistance to the very thing we're trying to convince them of. So the Rogerian argument is going to be a way to rewrite that Toolman argument so that it really shows respect and sort of an appreciation for the exchange of ideas that happens in a disagreement. It's the type of argument that makes disagreement productive, that makes argument productive rather than a fight. So that's how the grades are distributed. You'll submit everything through Blackboard, and the essay section is up here as well. That'll be all your writing will be checked for plagiarism and for AI GPT type generation. We'll be very thorough with that. So I'm not just going to take one zero GPT report or Turnitin report and presume that you've been using a GPT. I'm going to do at least 2 of them before then talking to you about it. But because these things, this is all going to be, one assignment is going to build on the next, and that's going to build on the next and build on the next. So this is all really only relevant if it is coming from you. The whole point of this is for you to learn how to use writing and communication as a means to sort of better understand a complicated issue and then share a complicated understanding. So obviously, we want you to express yourself, and that is not something that machine learning can do. Only you know what you want to say, even if you don't know exactly how you want to say it. If you don't know exactly how you want to say it, that is completely fine. You only learn by practicing. Now, if you were in my 1301 class, you may see some of the same material both in the assignments and in the reading. There is going to be some overlap because some of the concepts that we're going to discuss here, I would like you to have already learned in 1301, but I know a lot of you, if you were not in my 1301 class, you may not be familiar with these concepts yet. Things like the Toulmin argument, things like different types of stasis, I think are extremely helpful, and I really wish more composition classes discussed and trained people to exercise those sorts of awareness and those sorts of writing tools. But I'm not going to presume that you already know any of this, so there's going to be a little bit of repetition if you were in my 1301 class. So this week, after you finish watching this video, if you haven't already, look over the syllabus, look over the rules, policies, guidelines, course information, that sort of thing. Then read Kevin Carey's second chapter from his book, The End of College. It's there in the schedule as a PDF. I have highlighted certain things within that chapter to sort of, if it's a little bit more complicated reading, I don't think it is, but just to make sure we're sort of zeroing in on the same things in that chapter that we can then talk about in the discussion forum. So read Kevin Carey's chapter, look especially at the highlights. Don't just look at the highlights because they're not going to make a lot of sense by themselves, but pay special attention to the concepts, the questions, especially the 3 different models of a university that he's going to discuss there, as well as the little story he gives us from Plato's Phaedrus about Socrates, his story about these 2 guys named Teuth and TAMUCC. Pay special attention to those. The second reading by William Deresiewicz, I don't have any additional highlights or anything in that. I'm hoping that is easy enough to understand, and it's not quite as long. So read both of those, and then once you've read those, look at the discussion forum. In the discussion forum, I will ask you some questions about what of the 3 models of the university system you would prefer, or maybe rank them in order that according to what you want out of your university experience. I will also ask, questions about, how does, the idea of a changing marketplace or job market, how does that change, or how does that help prioritize your preferences? Another prompt will be about Socrates' warning about writing, which applies equally well to advancing technologies since writing, from the printing press to now generative AI. So you don't have to answer all of them. Just pick one and make a discussion post as your answer to that. And then when you're ready, you can take the quiz, and the quiz will be due Friday. But like I said, this week, I will probably leave that deadline open until Monday, just because we're starting a little bit late, and because, people are still sort of figuring out their routine for the semester. So this week, as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, don't hesitate to email me or schedule an office visit, either virtual or face-to-face through bookings, and look for announcements in your email. Check back with the class, the announcements in the schedule, but you will get announcements via email as I upload new things, and at least at the beginning of every week, on Monday of every week, at minimum, you will get an email to say, here's what we're doing this week, and to remind you about upcoming due dates and that sort of thing. So I hope to hear from you, and I hope the experience is enjoyable and at least intuitive and comprehensible, that you can find your way around Blackboard, know what's due when, and what needs to be read, what needs to be done, what needs to be submitted, and that sort of thing. But if there are any questions, any problems, any technical difficulties, please don't hesitate to send me an email. And like I said, this course is a work in progress. I'm adapting. I've been teaching this kind of course for 20 years now, but every year I'm updating it, and I'm really trying to overhaul and redesign the course to be relevant to the changing economic marketplace, jobs, the influence of AI and the role of the college student and the college student's ability to communicate through writing. All of that is constantly under revision, because we have a changing world out there, and so this class is changing with it. But that means I'm going to need you to be a little bit patient as I add new material in, maybe change readings, things like that. So I'm never going to change anything after Wednesday, so you've always got at least Thursday and Friday to prepare for a quiz. And if there's some unusual event causes me to be late, I will definitely take that into account. But please bear with me. I'm going to try to make this as relevant to you as I possibly can. And I'm going to try to make you as relevant as possible to the world beyond the university system. So let me know whatever questions you have and ideas, suggestions, and that sort of thing. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope you have a great semester.